Hey guys, it's Nicole, and today I want to talk a little bit about how I match my photos to my scrapbook generation page kits that I subscribe to and am very behind on. I had put out a video a couple months back asking for questions to do a Q&A style video, and I also posted it in a couple different areas, and this question just kept coming up. So I wanted to do a separate video. A lot of people were asking me, how do I match my photos up? Um, Issues that maybe they were having matching their own photos, just kind of the thought process, I guess, as far as how I personally do it. So today I wanted to just kind of sit down and go over maybe some examples of previous layouts that I have done where I've matched up photos that maybe, I guess maybe most people wouldn't initially think of to use. I don't know. This question kind of blew me away a little bit because I don't really feel like I'm doing anything mind blowing, and I don't feel like I guess I just don't feel like it's that big of a thing to match photos to these kits. But I think sometimes we can get sort of lost in like OCD land, or needing to have the perfect photos with the perfect layout. And I kind of have just, over the years of watching these kits stack up, watching my photos stack up, I've kind of just gotten down and dirty, just how fast can I match photos, and I kind of only have a couple things that I will maybe say that these photos won't work for this layout, but typically I can almost find something that's going to work for my photos and for the specific layout kits that I have subscribed to and that I use. So the first part of the video, I'm going to go over a couple different sample layouts that I've done, and then the second half of the video I'm planning to kind of walk you through how I go about matching my photos and editing my photos to send them off to print. In September there's going to be 2 sessions for a speed scrap, and I'm probably going to go ahead and use my scrapbook generation kits for that again. So I need to be matching my photos. So I figured I could merge this particular question from the Q&A request and just kind of put it out there to share. So if anybody is struggling with matching their photos to their kits, grab a drink and let's sit down and just go over a couple of things. Alright, so this first sample, I'm showing what the layout would look like in the sample that Scrapbook Generation puts out. I like to copy and paste these into a Word document, and I separate the super savers onto one printout, and then part 2 and part 3, both options, I put on a separate sheet. Then when I am sitting down to match my photos, I am using those printouts to look at photo orientation, I guess the way that the layout feels, and then kind of color tones. But I will kind of make an exception for that. I'm not the type of person that looks at my photos and matches the colors of the photos to my layout. Like, it does not bother me if my daughter was wearing a blue and green outfit. I would totally put her on this layout. It doesn't bother me. But with saying that, I also wouldn't put very heavily themed photos like Christmas or Halloween or going to the pumpkin patch. Like, to me, those just don't feel right. And I'm probably going to say that a couple times, that I will look at a layout and just whatever I feel or whatever photos pop up into my head is what I go with. And unfortunately, I don't really feel like that's a concrete answer to some of you that were asking for specifics on, I guess, how to match up photos. I think the tip, or like, I guess the biggest tip that I could give you would be to just let go of the need to have it be the perfect photos that will go with this layout. It doesn't need to be visiting a butterfly exhibit or something overly floral or overly feminine. These photos that I matched with mine were just some everyday photos that I had taken. My daughter had come into my craft room, and she was playing with her dollhouse and some toys at a table behind me, and I took a couple pictures. So when I was doing a big photo matching session, I just sat down with all my printouts, and I will just open up a year. My photos are all by year and then by month, and I'll just open up a month and I'll kind of just scroll through and see if anything sticks out right away. This type of layout in my mind is what I sort of categorize it as an everyday layout. It's not a specific holiday, it's not, the paper's not heavily themed, and the title isn't screaming that it needs to be a certain type of photo. So when I saw these photos, the first thing that I will kind of check off my mental does it match list is, does it feel like it would work with it? And for me, that's fine. The title, Every Day is an Adventure, these are just some photos of her playing, that goes for me. Uh, the colors in the actual photos, they're not clashing. In this instance, they're actually matching really well, but again, that doesn't really, it's not like high on my priorities. The biggest priority that I typically go with is, do I have enough photos, and the photos that I have, are they sort of oriented the right way? So back to the previous photo where it had listed the sizes that I needed, that is pretty much what I'm looking at. So if I know that a layout is saying that they used 10 photos on a double page layout, I'm going to start looking through my photos and see if I have anything that's 8 to 12 photos. Because I know I can merge 2 photos into a single print if I need to add some, or I can take away photos and maybe put in an extra journaling area. So pretty much how many photos and will they work when I edit them is what I'm actually looking at. This example, I know that this line is very Disney heavy and Disney themed, and I think that was sort of the intention with this line. We haven't been to Disney with my kids, so I know that I'm not going to have pictures of that. Any sort of Disney related photos are going to be pictures of him watching Mickey Mouse on TV, but that's probably going to be a single photo on my cell phone, which is not going to be a great photo, and again, it's only a single photo. So when I look at this, the feeling that I get from it is that it's an everyday type of layout. So just sort of everyday things. These photos were both taken over the course of 2 days with him playing in a box. So that, to me, it worked. The colors didn't clash, the theme didn't clash. This one in particular was one where I wasn't super excited about the line that they had picked. It's not one that I normally would have bought. So when I come across those layouts, usually I will kind of sort of step down my photos, I guess. I'm not going to pick ones that have like a significant meaning. That makes no sense. I guess the photos that I ended up using were from my phone. They were from a graduation ceremony that we had gone to, and they were not good photos, and they were really dark, blurry. So in my mind, this worked. And again, keeping in mind the orientation of the photos and how many photos did I have. So that just kind of ended up working out for that particular layout and sketch that they had provided. And now this is another one that upon seeing it, it just felt like an everyday style layout. Not a specific event, not a specific theme. It sort of lent itself to being able to use lots of photos. So I, again, just kind of went through my photos month by month, just kind of scrolling through. I came across these of when my son was really little, and I felt like the chaos of all the toys and the different random colors in the background would be, I guess, less noticeable or less distracting, paired up with this layout, not only for the style of the way that the cards are mixed in with the photos, but because the patterns themselves are a little chaotic, the colors are bright as well, and it's sort of just a everyday layout, but it's also a fun layout. So to me, that kind of lends itself better to like kids and just kind of everyday living. Now, this is one from the Girl Crazy kits, and I've seen people ask on forums, and I think I've gotten a couple comments on YouTube asking how I was liking the Girl Crazy and the Boy Crazy ones and how they worked as far as spectrum of age. I feel like you really can use them from anything from babies to adults. I don't really feel like anything is overtly heavily leaning one way or the other. This one just said, you are special, be you. I kind of knew because it was a girl crazy kit, I was probably going to be looking at pictures of just my daughter. So again, I just started scrolling through my photos looking for anything that I wanted to use. This particular layout called for the 8 photos I believe that are on here. I may have added an extra one, but I also ended up using another 4 or 5 in a divided page protector going between the 2 pages. So again, I tend to just kind of find the photos that I want to use and that I feel like it works with the layout. I don't feel like it needs to match. I don't feel like because they're pictures of my daughter as a baby in her crib that it needs to be baby paper or baby themed or anything along those lines. I go with sort of the feeling. That layout to me felt feminine, it felt young, so that was sort of where my mind was going as I was looking through my photos. And then I was also looking for a certain number of photos and sort of their orientation. And then this one is from one of the Boy Crazy kits. So this one, and then there was another one using the same products. So there was a lot of construction signs, sort of rough and tough themed boy things. I don't think immediately looking at it that you would think park or splash pad type thing. I think initially when you look at it, you would sort of find yourself thinking that it needs to be a boy and he has to be playing with a truck, or he has to be playing outside, sort of, playing in the dirt or playing with constructions. I just kind of don't let my mind go that way. I am literally looking for photos of my son. I am looking for 4 landscape photos, or if I find 3 landscape photos and 2 portrait photos, I know I can take those 2 portrait photos, turn them into 2 3x4s, put them on a 4x6, and that is my 4th quote unquote landscape photo. Then I can look at the other elements on the page and figure out 4 more that I know I can easily crop down to a 3x3, and one, that's usually not an awesome photo that by the time I crop it down to a 2x2, it's not a big deal. So I'm not overly thinking. I'm just literally going through my folders and looking at what the photos are of, the feeling that the photos give me, and does that sort of match up to the feeling that I'm getting when I look at the layout. Then the most important thing to me is, do I have enough photos, and can I make them the right size? If that's not my case, then those 2 aren't going to work for me. So I know in the back of my mind I've already seen that layout and I've already seen those photos, and I'm kind of keeping those up in the air for other options. Alright, now like I mentioned earlier, normally I take these samples that Scrapbook Generation provides and I will put them in a Word document and sort of have them stacked up all together on one page, and I can sort of hold them in my lap and go through my digital photos and figure out what I'm going to match with them. For the sake of the video, I just went ahead and dropped them into Photoshop to kind of talk about them here. Most of my kits are from the Super Sketch Club kit, where you get 3 layouts that are all considered the Super Savers. So for this particular kit, you've got 3 layouts all using the same line, the same supplies, and you're sort of stretching it to its limits as far as not really having any scraps left over. And then if you do not do the double up option, you get enough supplies on part 2 and part 3 to create another double page layout for each part. But what they do is they will send you 2 sketches and 2 samples. So you've got these 2 that use the same supplies, but you're deciding between the 2 that you want to make. Unless you double up, then you can make both. So I don't double up, so for this one I've got these 2, and usually the first thing I do is I tend to gravitate towards one or the other. I'm leaning away from this one just because I typically don't care for all of the fussy cutting and this type of stuff up here. I tend to like things to be more blocky and linear, so I am leaning towards this, which has 4 landscape photos and a couple of 3x4 photos. And that is not, in my mind, sort of set in stone as far as what I need to use. These are the easiest ones that I can add or take away photos from. For example, where it says 6x4 landscape photo, it's very easy to take two portrait oriented photos that you have, crop them down to a 3x4, and put them on the same 6x4 canvas when you send it off to print, so you're getting two photos in this area and it's taking up the same amount of space. An additional area that I like to add photos, and I tend to do it in the same ways because a lot of their kits, I wouldn't say copy, but they tend to have a lot of the same elements as far as how they lay out their photos. And a lot of times you'll have this grouping of two 3x4 photos, sort of, not like haphazard, but not lined up perfectly, just kind of a little bit more whimsical over here. This is a perfect area to just extend it and do an extra photo over here. And then you can kind of play around with how you spread this out, or depending on the papers, a lot of times you can cut out additional elements, or kind of dig through your scraps, or even go to your stash and pull out some extra embellishments to sort of fill in this shelf that the photos are sticking on. So this is the first one that I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the process as far as matching up my photos. So I know I'm not going to use this one down here, so I'm going to go ahead and close it just so it's not taking up space in my tray. And then these are the photos that go with the same kit. But back to sort of how I start thinking about which photos I want to match with this. Just looking at this to me sort of screams that it's an everyday type of layout, just kind of basic life, not really a theme, no holiday, nothing like that. So that's where my mindset is going. And then the only maybe more detailed aspect of that is they have this phrase up here that says home is wherever my bunch of crazies are. So in my mind, I don't want to put a bunch of pictures of us going to maybe an indoor play yard, because that's not home. So the only thing in the back of my mind is I'm thinking any sort of everyday pictures at home. So what I will typically do, here I've got photos pulled up from August of 2014, and I think 2014 is probably the year that I am most organized as far as my digital photos go, and probably the farthest that I've progressed as far as having a lot of photos scrapped for that year for some reason, and I think it is because I am more organized photo-wise. So a lot of times, even though I'm specifically looking for photos to match this, I am also keeping these other layouts in the back of my mind while I am looking in this particular folder. And a lot of times I'll either make little notes on some scrap paper, or I'll go ahead and dump them straight into Photoshop and edit them as I go. So as I'm looking through these, big groupings of photos like this from the same event are typically what I like to match up with those kits. These particular photos of the kids playing in the rain, I have already done a Scrapbook Generation kit with them. These photos of us going to the local chocolate factory, I have already edited these photos, printed them out, and matched them to a Scrapbook Generation kit, and they are sort of in my queue. Same thing with this, I have already done these, also matched them up to a kit. So then I'm sort of getting into other random photos in this album. And I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to see on the video, but I dump pictures from my camera, which is these ones with the image numbers, and then I will dump everything from my cell phone for that month in here as well, and that's what these longer titles are from. So I'm bouncing back and forth between the two, because even though I may have taken my large camera with me, sometimes because I've got my phone in my pocket, I'll snap a couple extra on my phone. And so I try to just make sure that I'm catching any photos from that same event. So while I was sort of scrolling through these, getting ready to do this video, I had come across a bunch of photos that I had taken all on the 20th of August, and they were all from around the house. And I believe that this day I was kind of practicing with my digital camera. So I had parked my son in front of the window and was just kind of practicing different things with the lighting. Same day with my cell phone, I had snapped some pictures at home. And this is sort of the thing that I feel supports the theme of going back to this layout of it being an everyday oriented layout. Bright colors makes me think family and kids, and then this phrase up here where it says home is wherever my bunch of crazies are makes me sort of feel like these random pictures of my kids being weird is going to fit. And this is a very blurry cell phone picture. It doesn't bother me, especially because I'm probably going to be putting a bunch of them all on the same layout. A lot of times if you manage to crop it down pretty small, you don't really notice it being not that great quality. So I'm going to go through and I will typically try to find ones that are my favorite or are maybe more clear. So I'm probably going to grab these two. This one of him, okay, if my computer will go, this one of him playing in the window, probably this one outside, okay. And then I'm going to make this smaller. Okay, here they go. And I'm just going to dump those into my sort of process or project bin down here. Okay. So far I've got 1, 2, 3. It didn't let me bring over this one. Oh, that's a video. Okay. Okay, now I'm going back up to these photos that I had taken with my camera and just double checking that they are from the same day. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to take this one, probably this one of the dog. And again, I'm taking more than I probably actually need. I'm just taking ones that at first look I think will fit the layout, and then I can go back and sort of weed out the ones that either I don't like, I don't need, or are maybe not the right orientation or size. Okay, so I'm going to drop all those in. Okay, so now that I've sort of done a first run of pulling the photos that I for sure want to use these photos to match them up with this layout, and all I've done in my project bin so far, just to kind of help you guys be able to see what I'm doing, I moved my sample photos for the other layouts down here at the bottom so it's not too distracting. And then you can see here I've got 13 photos that I initially pulled, and sort of, I guess, maybe my favorite photos all from that day or all from that event. And as you can see, I've got 13 photos pulled, and they're showing 6 photos on their sample. So already I know I'm gonna probably take 2 of these and split them into 3x4 photos. And then a lot of times what I'll end up doing is when I get my photos back, I will actually trim them apart and have it be a 3x4 photo here, a 6x4 photo here, and a 3x4 photo here. To me, sometimes it just looks a little bit nicer that way, to sort of have the larger photo sandwiched between the 2 smallers. It just kind of depends on when I actually sit down to put them together. And again, I'm probably going to go ahead and add another 3x4 photo over here. And then based on the fact that I have pulled 13, so if I change 2 of these, that gives me 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm up to 9 photos, and I've pulled 4 more. Some of these are duplicates enough that I may end up ditching 1 or 2. And then what I can also do is I may even throw in a couple, maybe like 2x2 photos here in this cluster with the camera. So I always start with the photos that are my favorite, the ones that I want to be the bigger photos, the ones that I want to be more prominent. Another thing that I like to keep in mind is I don't want to sort of have all the photos that are the same looking to be right next to each other. So here, like, these 3 photos of my son are all portrait oriented. It's all pretty much his face and his shoulders. I don't want to put all 3 of them over here and sort of have it be this like shrine to him. In my mind, that just doesn't work. So I like to sort of put one over here, put one over here, put one over here. So then I would mix it up, maybe, one of my son, one of my daughter, and then maybe like this one of her monkey or the dog, something like that. And so I will typically try to figure out which ones I'm going to start with. Since I know I'm going to split 2 of these and basically make this 2 portraits instead of a landscape, it's going to leave me with 2 landscape 6x4 photos. Those are going to be my largest photos. So I'm going to start with those, and I'm going to find 2 that I sort of want to feature. And initially off the bat, it's probably going to be this one. And typically I would just go ahead and save this and dump it into a folder. For the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of fill in all of this stuff and just kind of make sure that the aspect and ratio type stuff on my camera was in fact set up for 4x6, which it pretty much was. So and I think my Photoshop is running slower only because I'm recording, so that should not normally happen. Okay, so then I'm going to go to Save As, and typically when I am doing a photo order, I will go ahead and make a separate folder and just dump everything into it. So I'm just going to put, I should have done this before, August prints. And then you guys won't be able to see on the video, and I'll have to do it later, but when I do this step, I cut little sheets of paper and I make a rough sketch that matches the sample layout, and I will make notes of which photo goes where on my layout, and I will number them. So, and I'm just gonna title these Crazy, and I'm gonna save this one as 4, and I'll show you why here in just a second. Normally, because I would be working off of a note sheet, and I'm pretty sure you guys have seen them in my videos before, I will go through and say this is my rough sketch. On my rough sketch, I will have drawn some dashed lines here to remind myself that I'm splitting this photo, but it's going to print as 1. So I'll just go through and I'll say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Both of these are 5 because they're going to print on the same one, and then this would be 6, and probably the 2 smaller ones will also go on this canvas. So I'm going to have 6 prints saved. I like to save them as something either to remind myself of the layout or to remind myself of the event, and I like to do that because the places that I print, they will print the name of your file on the back of your photos. So it's so much easier for me. I can just flip to the back of the photos. I can pull Crazies 1, Crazies 2, Crazies 3, everything that I've saved Crazies with the numbers, grab them, stick them in my kit bag with this. When I go to do the layout, I pull out my note sheet and I match up everything and where it's going to go. So, And then as I am saving things and figuring out where it's going to go, I close the file. It's no longer part of my options down here to pull from. I already know it's going to go here when I get my photos back and I sit down to scrapbook. So I've done this 6x4, and I know he's going to go here because in the image he's looking to the left. So I want him over here. So I'm going to go ahead and just assume that this 6x4 up here in the top left is where I'm going to want the other large photo. And I'm already kind of leaning towards this one, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm probably going to come in a little closer to them as far as my cropping. Okay. And then again, I'm going to say this is Crazy's 1 because it's going in that position that on my rough sketch is 1. And this may be, I mean, I don't think, nobody needs to do this. I'm just crazy. This is just, by the time I edit these, I get them uploaded, I finally order them, I wait for them to get delivered. I can't remember what my original plan was. So this works for me. I've been doing it for years, and it just is sort of what works for me. So now that I've got the two larger photos that I want to use, now I'm looking at, I need to find basically a whole bunch of photos that I can crop down to 3x4s, because these over here are 3x4s, and then these that I'm going to be changing need to become 3x4. So a lot of times, if I know that I'm cropping a bunch of photos to the same size, I will go ahead and do a bunch of them at the same time, because basically my crop tool is already set up for that size. And then I typically will try to keep it balanced, especially if it's a layout with both kids. I'll try to keep not like an exact number of, boy versus girl or anything like that. I know a lot of these photos, for instance, my daughter was napping, so that's kind of why she's not around for some of them. Okay. Okay, and again, as of right now, just sort of pre-planning stages. I need about 7 3x4 photos. So, in just like the larger photos, I tend to work sort of favorite photos first, and then sort of step it down in how well I like the photo sort of equates to what size it's going to be. So anything that's going to be blurry or anything that I don't particularly care for, those are going to be the ones that I will probably end up making like a 2x2 photo, or something that is maybe a supporting photo, like the dog. Like here, I'm going to go ahead and ditch this one because I had another photo that was similar, although right now I may keep it because I may end up cropping her face into a 2x2 because I like her silly expression. Okay, and then before I get too far, I need to sort of start getting rid of photos, and by rid of I mean I need to start putting them in my print folder and get them out of like my workflow. So when I am doing smaller size photos that I need to send out to print, I will come and make a new canvas that's already sized to a 4x6, and then I will just keep reusing it over and over. I will keep dragging and dropping my photos into it. So So I'm going to take these two of her. And again, it's normally not this slow. Okay, so I'm going to do a save as, and then because this is a canvas in Photoshop, it's going to automatically give me this PSD file, so I have to make sure that when I do these that I do change them to a JPEG. So I'm just going to say crazies 2 because I know when I get these back I'm going to end up cutting them apart and sort of figuring out where they go more when I sit down to do the layout. I don't tend to kind of lock myself in on these. So now before I take these off my canvas, I'm going to clear them out of my project bin down here so that they're out of the way. I've already used them. They're already in my print folder. So as of right now, I have pretty much this photo, enough for up here, and enough for down here. So I'm just slowly working my way around the page. So I need to bring this up. I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to put 2 more that I have already cropped. And this is basically just the easiest way that I have kind of found to get smaller prints done for, I guess, a reasonable price, or the same price that you would pay for a regular 4x6 print, if that makes sense. I have never tried to talk my way through this process while doing it, and I did not prep ahead. And I had thought about cutting out some of this, and then I was like, no, because if somebody asked me a question and I left it out, like, I would feel bad. Okay, so again, I'm taking these two photos I've taken out of my project bin, so I don't have them to choose from for editing. I've already done it. It's already saved in my folder. So even though it may not be where they're going to end up when I do my layouts, the photos that are going to fill these spots, I've already edited them, I've saved them in my folder. So I've got 1, 2, 3 3x4 photos that I want to put over here, and then I can start looking at any others that I feel like I want to include. I can start maybe doing like 2x3s or 2x2s. So I'm going to come back, let's see. So I want to find 3 that I can put over here. And I think I'm going to take this one, even though I said I may do a 2x2 of it. I'm going to actually do a 3x4 of her, because then that's pretty much my last option of any photos involving my daughter. So I've got one of her. I'm going to do a different size on that one, so maybe I'll come and take her monkey, make him a 3x4 as well. Okay, and then again, as I'm getting enough to fill up a canvas, I'm going ahead and saving them so that I'm not getting too mixed up, too distracted by everything, and I'm just kind of plugging along one print at a time. And I just go down the numbers as far as file numbers. So this one's going to be Crazies 5. And then I'm going to close them out of my project bin, not saving the changes in case I ever want to go back to my original photos. They're still in my my external hard drive. Okay, so again, I have everything for this row, everything for this row, and basically these 2 photos are saved in my thing. So I need another 3x4 and then probably a couple 2x2s for over here. This is where I kind of start to get like, oh, you know, look at how cute he is. How am I gonna, you know, decide between this kind of stuff? So I like to go back, and a lot of times I will keep my print folder open so that I can see and I can kind of get an idea for what I have. Looking back, I'm thinking this is not really a great photo. So I may take this one out, and I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to take this one out because it's not that great of a photo compared to the ones that I have here. But none of these are landscapes. So now, instead of subbing one photo for one photo, I'm going to sub one photo for two. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm gonna crop it to 3x4s, put two of them on a thing, and basically that whole left side of the layout is only going to have one full-size photo, and the rest are going to be 3x4s. And that doesn't bother me because I know that I'm getting a ton of photos all on one 2-page layout. Now, the other option that I obviously could have done was maybe add like a divided page protector between the two pages. That for me takes a little bit more planning. I kind of tend to do that more with photos that I already have printed. I think, did I already crop that? I kind of decided to just sort of force myself to use the ones that I have picked, and mostly just to show you guys how I go about doing it. I kind of feel like adding another page protector between your pages is pretty self-explanatory. Usually you're just kind of slipping in your prints and using your scraps to kind of maybe embellish an extra area. And especially this page, I'm not sure how I'm going to end up, how many leftover pieces I'm going to have at the end. Okay, so I'm going to close these. I'm not going to save them. And then I'm going to take these off my canvas. So now I've got 3 photos left from the original 13 that I wanted to use. And in my print folder, I have a total of 5 prints that I'm going to get. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I can do my extra 3x4, and then I have room to put 2 extra little photos, and I've basically used all my photos. So I think I'm gonna do this one as the extra 3x4. Oh, sometime today. Okay, and then I think these last 2, sometimes I feel like, even though it's only half an inch, sometimes I feel like a 2x2 photo, it can be really tiny. So I think I'm going to do 2.5 on these. And really, I mean, that's only his face, but I like the picture. I want to include the picture. Oh, this has to be because I'm recording. Normally it doesn't take this long, and I'm even using like the fast computer. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in and get one of the dog. Okay, and then I should be able to get all 3 of these on one canvas to print. No, not because I did 2.5s. Okay. Yes. Okay, now this is when I will start to add an extra canvas. When I get to the end of editing photos for one layout, and I have a situation like this, I don't want to send this to the printer because I feel like this is a wasted print opportunity. So a lot of times I will have a 3x4 that goes to one layout on the same print as a 3x4 that goes to another layout. So while I'm working on them, I will leave this one up until I get another 3x4 to put here. These two 2.5-inch square ones, I am going to put them on the same, and I like to spread them out because the smaller photos, I like having that white border around them. Okay. And then, okay, so this one, again, these are going to print out with the file names on the back of the photos. It makes it super easy. Close out these. And then take these off my canvas, and this is ready to go for the next layout that I'm going to match photos to. So this, again, is still sort of in my workflow. Once I get another 3x4 photo for a different layout edited, I will put it in here, I will save it. It will go into this same folder that I titled August Prints, but when I save it with the title of Mix, and then I just start with 1, 2, 3, and as I've got these prints that are sort of a mix of 2 different layouts and sometimes 3, I just title them Mix, and then I'll make a note on my little cheat sheet that the photos that I am wanting to include in this, in this area, or actually it's going to be this one, I'll make a note to myself that I want to add a 3x4 photo here, that I want to add 2 small photos here, and then I will sort of write excuse me, I will write on this little photo that I end up drawing in, I'll write Mix 1. And then that way when I get my photo back from the printer, on the back of the photo it will say Mix 1, and I know when I cut those photos in half, one of them goes here and one of them goes, to the other layout that I will do a rough draft of. So I hope that this kind of answers some of the questions that I was getting as far as how do I edit my photos specifically to use with scrapbook generation kits. If you have any other questions regarding my personal process for this, just leave me a comment below, and I'm usually pretty good about replying right away, especially on YouTube comments. I don't think I'll get any questions that need like a whole other video. Be on the lookout for sort of part 2 of a Q&A type video answering the other questions that I received that didn't necessarily need a step-by-step process. So as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you guys next time.